The day the Galactic Federation discovered humanity was the day they made their first cosmic miscalculation. Bipedal carbon-based life forms, marginally adaptable thermal range, unremarkable intelligence quotient, droned Ambassador Zexlar of the Fralthian Empire, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence as he scrolled through the classification report. Physical resilience, slightly above median for their gravity well. Omnivorous diet pattern, nothing particularly noteworthy. They evolved from prey species, offered Science Director Quill, her translucent tentacles rippling with mild interest. Rare to see a non-apex predator achieve spaceflight. Perhaps the only remarkable thing about them. Admiral Thompson sat silent in the Federation's Grand Assembly Hall, the lone human representative permitted to hear humanity's official classification. Surrounded by 300 alien delegates representing the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy, he maintained his poker face. The Federation saw humans as unimpressive mammals who'd stumbled into the stars through blind luck rather than merit. Let them underestimate us, he thought. What the Federation didn't grasp, couldn't comprehend, was the duality of human nature. They saw our cooperation, our unified Earth government, our humanitarian missions to struggling colonies. They didn't see beneath the surface, where ancient tribal instincts still churn. They couldn't have predicted what happened next. 3 years after Federation recognition, Earth's government fractured. It started with resource disputes over helium-3 mining rights in the Jupiter orbit. Escalated with territorial claims on Mars. By the time the orbital bombardment of New Seattle killed 40,000 colonists, humanity was in full civil war. The broadcasts reached every corner of Federation space, Earth ships firing on Earth ships, colony rising against colony, brother against brother. In the Drarvik sector, Supreme Commander Kralinex of the Trixar Dominion watched the footage with his generals' mandibles clicking with anticipation. Their civil conflict has reached optimal intensity, reported Intelligence Officer Vexcor. 83% of their fleet is engaged in internecine warfare. Planetary defense systems are operating at 40% capacity due to sabotage and divided loyalties. Kralanex's carapace gleamed under the war room lights. The humans occupy 17 habitable worlds in resource-rich sectors. Their genetic adaptability makes them ideal for labor exploitation, and once conquered, the Federation will recognize our claim as legitimate under the non-intervention accords. A subordinate raised a pincer. But Supreme Commander, the humans' industrial capacity is meaningless when they're using it against themselves, Kralnex interrupted. The Federation has classified them as a non-threatening species. We have deniability if challenged. He rose to his full height. The invasion begins in 30 cycles. What followed was methodical annihilation. The Trexar battle groups struck Earth's outlying colonies first. New Eden fell in 6 hours. Its 3 million inhabitants herded into processing facilities. Proxima Centauri's mining stations went dark after sending a single desperate distress call that no one answered. The Trexar moved inward, system by system, their black ships emerging from jump points with perfect coordination. At Federation headquarters, Admiral Thompson pleaded for intervention. They're systematically exterminating us. 8 colonies gone, billions dead or enslaved. High Chancellor Orblax's gelatinous form pulsed with what might have been regret. The Federation cannot intervene in what has been classified as a regional conflict. The Trixar have filed proper territorial expansion notices. Territorial expansion. They're committing genocide. Your species was already destroying itself, noted Ambassador Zexlar. The Trexar are merely accelerating the inevitable outcome. Thompson realized the truth then. The Federation wasn't going to help. Some members were actively supplying the Trixar, securing future mining rights to conquered human worlds. Others simply looked away, unwilling to challenge the powerful dominion over an unremarkable species. By the 7th month, 70% of human-controlled space had fallen. Resistance was fierce, but disorganized. Earth's orbital defenses were breached. The lunar colonies went silent. Desperate civilian ships fled toward the galactic rim. Hunted by Trixar patrols, in a bunker deep beneath what remained of Denver, the surviving human leadership assembled. General Sarah Jackson, dust-covered and bleeding from a head wound, studied the holographic map, showing Trexar advanced positions. We've lost the orbital platforms. They control near-Earth space completely. Ground invasion begins in less than 48 hours. Colonel Mark Davis slammed his fist on the table. The Fifth Fleet is still engaged against Pacific Alliance forces in the Saturn sector. If we could just make contact. Communications are jammed, said Dr. James Wilson, his lab coat stained with the blood of patients he couldn't save. And even if we could reach them, they still consider us enemies. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 12 billion humans had died in the past 7 months. Another 5 billion were processed in Trixar labor camps, their expected survival time measured in weeks. Earth itself would fall within days. Admiral Thompson, recalled from his Federation post, looked at the faces around him, former enemies forced into this desperate last stand. His voice came out barely above a whisper. We always thought our greatest threat would come from within, that we'd be the architects of our own extinction. He gestured to the alien ships on the display. We were wrong. Dr. Wilson rubbed his eyes. At current loss rates, and accounting for projected birth rates in surviving populations, humanity will be functionally extinct within 8 months. The bunker's lights flickered as another bombardment shook the earth above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Someone sobbed quietly in the corner. General Jackson straightened her shoulders. Then if we're going to die anyway, we might as well die together. No one in that room knew it yet, but her words would become the unlikely seed of humanity's salvation and the galaxy's nightmare. Because what the Trexar and the Federation failed to understand was simple. Humans aren't just insane. We're insane together. The message that saved humanity wasn't transmitted through quantum relays or hyperspace beacons. It traveled the old way, by human voice, passed from survivor to survivor, bunker to bunker, ship to ship. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well die together. When the recording of General Jackson's words reached the Fifth Fleet in Saturn space, Admiral James Walker froze, his coffee cup suspended midway to his lips. On his view screen he could see the Pacific Alliance ships they'd been exchanging fire with just hours earlier. Confirm that transmission, he ordered, his voice tight. Confirmed, sir. Earth has fallen. The Trexar have breached atmospheric defenses. All major cities under orbital bombardment. Walker closed his eyes. His family was in Boston. Open a channel to Pacific Alliance Command. His communications officer stared. Sir? Now, Lieutenant. When Admiral Yuri Petrov's face appeared on screen, both men regarded each other in silence. They'd been trying to kill each other for 2 years. You've heard? Walker finally asked. Petrov nodded once. My brother was in Moscow. I'm sorry. As am I for your losses. Petrov's eyes hardened. What do you propose, Admiral? Walker gestured to his tactical display. We have 11-16 capital ships between us. If we combine forces, it won't be enough, Petrov interrupted. The Trixar Dominion fields thousands. Not if we're smart. Not if we're human. 7 days later, the Trixar landing force at the Denver ruins detected an anomaly. Their forward scouts reported human activity, but not the usual disorganized resistance. This was coordinated, methodical. Supreme Commander Kralnex received the report with irritation. Eliminate them. They're vermin at this point. But the elimination never came. Instead, 12 Trexar dropships vanished without trace. Then a fuel depot exploded, supply lines were severed, and impossibly, human ships appeared in orbit, not fleeing, but attacking. Small, agile craft that darted through Trexar formations, striking and disappearing before the massive battleships could respond. By the 3rd week, the Trexar advance had stopped completely. Impossible, hissed Kralnex, studying the battle maps. These are the same humans who were slaughtering each other months ago. His intelligence officer's mandibles clicked nervously. We've intercepted communications between previously hostile human factions. They've not only ceased hostilities, they've integrated command structures. They can't simply forget their differences overnight. Evidence suggests they have, Supreme Commander. Meanwhile, in what remained of the Denver bunker, now the heart of Earth's resistance, Admiral Thompson watched as former enemies worked side by side. Engineers from rival corporations modified weapons together. Soldiers who'd been shooting at each other now trained in joint squads. Is it working? Asked Dr. Wilson, limping to Thompson's side. Thompson nodded toward the tactical display, where small blue indicators showed human forces regaining footholds across Earth's surface. We're not losing anymore. That's something. The key was asymmetrical warfare. what humans had always excelled at. The Trexar expected conventional attacks, humans gave them nightmares instead. In Chicago, a 12-year-old boy guided elite soldiers through service tunnels he'd explored while hiding from the invasion, allowing them to ambush Trexar patrols from below. In orbit, human pilots flew suicide runs through Trexar formations, not to crash into them, but to dump specialized nanite payloads that devoured Trexar hull materials from within. At a remote Antarctic facility, scientists who'd developed bioweapons to use against human enemies now repurposed them to attack Trexar biology. "They're insects, basically," explained Dr. Susan Hayes, once the Pacific Alliance's top biological weapons developer. "Exoskeletons, compound visual organs, specialized respiratory systems. We've engineered a synthetic bacterium that eats through their carapace but leaves all carbon-based life unaffected. Deploy it," ordered General Jackson without hesitation. Months passed. The grinding war of attrition transformed into something else, a methodical reclamation. One Earth city after another was liberated. Human prisoners freed from processing centers joined the fight immediately, their eyes hollow but determined. 9 months after the invasion, humans retook their first colony world. New Eden's liberation came at terrible cost. Nearly half the assault force perished, but the psychological impact was immeasurable. Humans weren't just surviving, they were pushing back. Federation observers watched in astonishment. "Their tactics defy conventional military doctrine," reported Ambassador Zexler. "They're employing strategies no rational species would consider." "Example?" asked High Chancellor Oblax. "In the Europa campaign, they deliberately irradiated their own occupied territories before attacking. Their soldiers used experimental medical treatments to survive radiation that killed the Trexar instantly." "That's insane," whispered a reptilian delegate. "Precisely," agreed Zexler. "We may have miscalculated. By the 17th month, humanity had reclaimed 30% of their territory. The cost was catastrophic. For every world liberate, millions of humans died. But where the Trexar expected surrender, they found only escalating fury." Admiral Walker, commanding the combined Earth fleet, stood on his flagship's bridge as they prepared to liberate Mars. "The Trexar are falling back to fortified positions," his tactical officer reported. "They've established defensive lines around the main habitats. Those habitats contain human hostages," noted his second-in-command. Walker's face showed no emotion. "Deploy the new warheads." "Sir, our own people." "Deploy them, Commander." Every human on those habitats volunteered for this mission. They knew what it meant. As the missiles launched, Walker closed his eyes. The Trexar never expected humans to sacrifice their own people willingly. They couldn't comprehend that level of commitment. On the command deck of the Trexar flagship, Supreme Commander Kralex watched in disbelief as the humans bombarded their own habitat. "They're killing themselves to kill us," he chittered. "This violates every principle of self-preservation." Mars fell in 3 days, the Jovian colonies a week later. With each victory, the human war machine grew more efficient, more ruthless. In Federation space, emergency sessions debated intervention, not to help humans now, but to constrain them. The species they'd dismissed as unremarkable had transformed into something terrifying. "They've developed specialized hunter-killer ships," reported a military advisor. "Vessels designed exclusively to pursue and destroy Trexar craft, with suicide crews who manually detonate if systems fail. The psychological profile of human combatants has shifted dramatically," added another analyst. "Initial defensive postures have been replaced by aggressive extermination protocols. They're not just fighting for survival anymore." Admiral Thompson, now Supreme Commander of United Human Forces, addressed his war council on the 30th month of conflict. "The Trexar have requested Federation mediation," he announced. The room erupted in protests. "After what they did to Earth, to our colonies? Mediation? They deserve extinction." Thompson raised his hand for silence. "We've pushed them back to their core systems. For the first time, they're afraid." Dr. Wilson, now Thompson's closest advisor, studied his friend's face. "You're considering it?" Thompson's eyes reflected something Wilson hadn't seen since before the invasion calculation. "The Federation is watching us closely now," Thompson said quietly. "They've realized their mistake in underestimating us, but they've made a new one." "Which is?" Thompson's smile was cold. "They think we're done." 3 years after humanity faced extinction, the unthinkable happened. The Trixar Dominion, a civilization that had dominated its sector for millennia, found itself besieged, its mighty fleets in retreat, its colonies falling one by one to the species they'd tried to exterminate. The Galactic Federation looked on in horror as the humans, those unremarkable bipeds, systematically dismantled an empire. And they were just getting started. The Federation Council chamber had never been this tense. Representatives from 200 species sat in uncomfortable silence as the peace talks between humans and Trexar began. The diplomatic vessel, orbiting Proxima Centauri, had been declared neutral territory. Though the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone, this was where the Trixar invasion had begun 4 years earlier. Now it was where they hoped to end the nightmare they'd created. Supreme Commander Thompson entered, flanked by General Jackson and Dr. Wilson. Their faces betrayed nothing as they took their seats opposite the Trixar delegation. Supreme Commander Krallen looked diminished. His once gleaming carapace was dull, his mandibles clicking nervously. Beside him, 3 Trexar diplomats huddled protectively. High Chancellor Orblax's gelatinous form pulsed with nervous energy as he floated to the center of the chamber. "This council recognizes the gravity of this moment," Orblax began. "The conflict between the Trixar Dominion and humanity has destabilized an entire sector. Billions of lives have been lost. We convene today to broker lasting peace." Thompson's expression remained blank. The humans hadn't spoken directly to any Trixar representative since the war began. They wouldn't start now. Ambassador Zexler leaned forward. "Supreme Commander Thompson, your forces have reclaimed all human territories and pushed deep into Trexar's space. The Federation acknowledges humanity's right to reparations but urges restraint and—" "Restraint?" General Jackson's laugh was hollow. "That's rich coming from those who watched our extinction with restraint." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Zexlar continued, unperturbed. "The Federation proposes the following terms: immediate cessation of hostilities, withdrawal of human forces from Trexar territory, and establishment of a demilitarized zone." Thompson glanced at his colleagues, then back to the Federation representatives. "We'll consider your proposal and provide our answer within the hour." The humans stood and left without acknowledging the Trixar delegation. In a private chamber, Thompson conferred with his team via encrypted quantum link to the unified human fleet. "Status?" he asked Admiral Walker. "All units in position, sir. Awaiting your command." Thompson nodded. "And our insurance policy?" Dr. Wilson handed him a tablet. "The calculations are precise. One strike at these coordinates will trigger a cascading reaction through their planetary shield grid. The entire homeworld will be exposed." General Jackson studied the data. "Civilian casualties?" "Total," Wilson replied without emotion. "As with New Eden, as with Earth." Thompson set the tablet down. "The Federation is expecting us to agree to their terms. They've always underestimated us," Jackson said. "Why stop now?" Exactly 1 hour later, the human delegation returned to the chamber. Thompson took his seat and faced the assembled delegates. "The human race has considered your proposal for peace," he began, his voice steady. "We regret to inform you that we cannot accept the terms as they stand." The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Krallen's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Trexar equivalent of panic. "However," Thompson continued, "we are willing to compromise." A sudden commotion at the Trexar communication station drew all eyes. A junior officer burst through the doors, chittering frantically to Krallen. "What is the meaning of this interruption?" demanded High Chancellor Orblax. Krallen slowly rose, his compound eyes fixed on Thompson. "Our deep space sensors detect human warships surrounding our homeworld, thousands of them." "How? When did you—" Thompson smiled thinly. "We've been positioning our fleet for months. The peace talks were convenient timing." "This is outrageous," hissed a Trixar diplomat. "High Chancellor, we demand Federation protection under Attitude 7 of the Non-Aggression Compact. This constitutes an illegal blockade of a sovereign world. The same protection you extended to humanity," Dr. Wilson asked quietly. Before Orblax could respond, Thompson tapped a small device on his wrist. The central holographic display activated, showing a real-time feed of the Trexar homeworld, a massive blue-green planet surrounded by orbital platforms. And then, without warning, the human fleet opened fire. The chamber watched in stunned horror as thousands of specialized warheads penetrated the planetary defense grid. Within minutes, the cascading failure Wilson had predicted began. Orbital platforms collapsed, defense shields failed. The atmosphere itself began to burn. No one spoke, no one moved. Even the Trexar's grief was soundless, as they watched the birthplace of their civilization and 10 billion of their people vanish in atomic fire. Thompson's voice cut through the silence. 16 billion human beings died in your invasion. Men, women, children, entire bloodlines erased. Centuries of culture and achievement gone. He gestured to the devastation still unfolding on the display. We feel that trading 10 billion Trixar for 16 billion humans is a more than fair compromise. The word compromise dripped with venom. Are you insane? Roared Ambassador Zexlar, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. This is genocide. This is as far from peace as any being can achieve. There will be no peace until your vile species is wiped from even the memories of my grandchildren. Thompson's smile widened slightly. Good, he said, no longer attempting to hide the rage in his eyes. I was hoping you'd say that. The days following the destruction of the Trexar homeworld changed the galaxy forever. The Federation, that bastion of interspecies cooperation for 5 centuries, fractured along ideological lines. 4 major powers, the Andorian Alliance, the Vrexel Combine, the Taran Republic, and the Novan Consortium, formally seceded from the Federation. All 4 had initially voted to stop the Trexar when they first began showing interest in humanity, only to be overruled by the larger powers. Supreme Commander Thompson addressed the remaining human population from the newly established human headquarters on Mars. Make no mistake, he told them, we are now at war with the Galactic Federation itself. They labeled us unremarkable. They watched our suffering with indifference. They will learn that was their final mistake. In the shadows of deep space, ancient eyes watched these developments with growing interest. The progenitors, a civilization so old they had passed into myth, stirred from their self-imposed isolation. It has been 7 million cycles since we've seen such potential, observed Elder Nix, her crystalline form shimmering in the light of a dying star. These humans, they've done what no species has managed since our own ascension. They've broken the Federation's control, agreed Elder Thox, but at what cost? They've become monsters in the process. Elder Nix's laughter echoed like breaking glass. My dear Thox, that's precisely what makes them perfect. The galaxy has grown stagnant under Federation guidance. These humans, these gloriously insane creatures, have shattered the equilibrium. You admire their barbarity. I admire their potential, their adaptability, their beautiful madness. She extended a crystalline appendage toward the holographic display showing human warships mobilizing. They've transformed from prey to predator in a single generation. Imagine what they might become in 1,000 years with the right guidance. On the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, Admiral Walker received a transmission unlike any encountered before. The ship's quantum communication array nearly overloaded processing it. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a signal from... I can't pinpoint the origin. The encryption is unlike anything in our database, but it's speaking perfect English. Walker frowned. Put it through. A voice like crystal wind filled the bridge. Children of Earth, we have watched your metamorphosis with great interest. Your species has proven itself worthy of attention. The Federation's time is ending. A new era approaches, one that requires your unique brand of controlled insanity. Walker's hand hovered over the emergency protocols. Identify yourself. We have been called many things across the eons. The Ancients, the Forerunners, the Shapers. You may know us as the Progenitors. Across the bridge, officers exchanged shocked glances. The mythical first civilization, believed to be nothing more than legend. We offer partnership, Admiral Walker, not subjugation as the Federation would impose, nor extinction as the Trexar attempted. True alliance between equals. Why now? Walker demanded. Why us? The crystal voice seemed to laugh. Because, Admiral, in all our millions of years watching the younger races, we've never seen anything quite as wonderfully gloriously insane as humanity. And insanity, properly directed, is exactly what this galaxy needs. The message ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Walker stared at the starfield beyond his viewport, a slow smile spreading across his face. The galaxy would never be the same again, and humanity was just getting started.